With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories: biodegradable fish pot panels mark a milestone as Coast Fish Project concludes in St. Kitts and Nevis. Robbery reported in Buckley's housing development. Progress update on investments and innovations in St. Kitts Water Services. Barbados Minister of Energy and Business calls for region to double intra-regional trade. OECS educators gather in St. Lucia to revamp primary education. Internationally, riot police and anti-ICE protesters square off in Los Angeles. Now, the details. As the Coast Fish Project officially draws to a close, one of its signature accomplishments comes into sharper focus: the introduction and adoption of biodegradable panels in fish pots. The innovative measure is a cornerstone in the ongoing efforts by the Department of Marine Resources to combat the persistent issue of ghost fishing and to foster sustainability across the nation's coastal fisheries. Karim Sadler, head of the Fisheries Extension Unit at the St. Kitts Department of Marine Resources, elaborated on the origins and intent of the initiative.
We initiated a project in collaboration with the government of Japan known as the Coast Fish Project, and this project is geared toward coastal fisheries management. And one of the improving initiatives that we would have focused on, in that one of the focal areas of that project would have been the introduction of biodegradable panels in fish trap fishing. So trap, integral part of our fisheries here. Traditionally, fishers have been using traps to target a number of reef species as well as lobsters. And so what we want to do is to improve on how that fishery is conducted so that general sustainability is improved.
This concerted approach responds to a significant environmental challenge. Ghost fishing, the phenomenon in which lost or abandoned fishing gear continues to trap and kill marine species, has long threatened marine biodiversity, depleted fish stocks, and disrupted the livelihoods of communities that depend on fishing. The introduction of biodegradable panels represents a practical and scientifically grounded solution to this problem. Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources, the Honorable Samuel Duggins, commended the local fishers for their proactive embrace of this technology.
I extend heartfelt congratulations to our dedicated fishers who have taken the commendable step of installing biodegradable panels on their fish pots, an essential measure in the fight against ghost fishing. This forward-thinking action reflects a strong commitment to sustainable fisheries and ocean conservation. We are especially grateful to the Coast Fish Project for its invaluable support in making this initiative possible. On behalf of the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, thank you for your support and partnership in preserving our marine resources for future generations.
The biodegradable panels have been designed to degrade naturally over time, thereby ensuring that lost or discarded fish pots cease to trap marine life after a limited period. This innovation aligns with international best practices aiming to reduce derelict fishing gear and its harmful ecological footprint while maintaining the efficiency of fishers' traditional methods. This initiative also forms part of a broader strategy in St. Kitts and Nevis to promote sustainable fishing practices and protect marine ecosystems. The adoption of biodegradable fish pot panels exemplifies the Federation's dedication to innovative solutions that promote the longevity of fisheries, protect biodiversity, and secure the livelihoods of future generations. A robbery was reported in the early hours of June 6, 2025 in the Buckley's housing development, prompting an active investigation by the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. According to the reports, the victim, identified as Justin Merritt, was feeding his dog in his yard at approximately 12:20 a.m. when four masked suspects approached him. Two of the assailants emerged from nearby bushes, followed moments later by two others. All four individuals were clad in all black attire, including long-sleeve tops, long pants, and shoes. Notably, one of the men was armed with a firearm. The suspects ordered Merritt not to run before forcibly robbing him of his jewelry and cell phone. Despite the frightening ordeal, no physical injuries have been reported at this time. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has confirmed that investigations into the incident are ongoing as they seek to bring those responsible to justice. Authorities are appealing to the public for any information that might assist in their inquiries. Residents and business owners in the area are urged to contact the Criminal Investigation Department at 662-1140 or report to their nearest police station. On June 5, 2025, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, Domestic Transport, ICT and Posts held an extensive progress update press briefing, shedding light on significant developments and achievements across various ministries. Notably, the Water Services Department announced that it has embarked on the most significant investment in the nation's water sector in its history, marked by a 400% increase in budgetary allocation. This surge in investment translates into critical projects designed to address long-standing water supply challenges across the Federation. The flagship undertaking is the construction of the 2 million gallon per day Bastia desalination plant, a project that is advancing swiftly and is slated to provide a more reliable potable water supply to the Bastia region and beyond. Complementing this initiative is the development of the Keon well, the construction of new storage tanks, and extensive pipeline upgrades aimed at improving water distribution across multiple community efforts. In addition to these, the Water Services Department is actively pursuing innovative approaches to water security through a semi-airborne geophysical survey with drone mapping, strategically mapping underground aquifers to pinpoint new groundwater sources. Plans are underway to drill up to 10 additional wells to alleviate shortages in targeted areas. Moreover, the U.S. $40 million Green Climate Fund (GCF) Trans Water Project represents another cornerstone effort focused on enhancing the Federation's climate resilience and sustainable water management. Cromwell Williams, head of the Water Services Department, highlighted both the progress made and the challenges that remain.
So 2025 thus far has seen us beginning to turn the corner in terms of improving the reliability of our water supply. Thanks to Almighty God for providing the rain, because we must acknowledge that without rain, we cannot provide a sustainable and reliable water service.
Williams highlighted the paradox of what might be considered one of the wettest dry seasons in years, emphasizing nature's vital role in the water supply chain. He candidly acknowledged the complexity of the water shortage issue.
I must stress that it took years for us to fall into the unfortunate situation in which we find ourselves, where we have a current water shortage. Our supply is not adequate to meet our demand, but that didn't happen overnight. And I say that because just as it didn't happen overnight, it cannot be solved overnight. It will take time. But be assured that we were never at a loss as to the solution and what it takes for us to overcome this unfortunate situation in which we find ourselves.
Williams was explicit about the necessity of sustaining well drilling to avoid less than 24-hour water supply scenarios, lamenting that such practices had diminished in previous years.
We also know that there would have come a time when our groundwater resources would not have been adequate to meet our demand, and to compensate and to augment that, we had to turn to desalination. And so we have reached that point, especially in the Bastia area, where we have had to turn to desalination.
While desalination is often viewed as an expensive alternative that relies on considerable electrical energy, it remains a critical solution to the water crisis, particularly for St. Kitts and Nevis, which lacks the energy abundance found in oil and gas-producing nations. Credit was given to Minister Conris Maynard for his scientific and proactive approach since assuming office over 2 years ago.
Because of his aggressive stance in solving the water shortage situation, once it was clear that the most feasible solution for Bastia was desalination, we went about the procurement process as efficiently as possible. And today, we have a 2 million gallon per day desalination plant that is about 75% completed. And we should start pumping the highest quality potable water from that plant into our system by next month.
The well drilling program has also been revitalized, with a contract valued at $25 million awarded to a Trinidad and Tobago firm to drill approximately 10 wells around the island.
We therefore anticipate that within the next 2 months, Bastia, including St. Peter's, should have returned or would return to 24 hours water supply as a result of the commissioning of the Bastia desalination plant. And by the end of this year, some of the rural communities will also be returned to 24 hours water supply due to the construction of new wells.
In reflecting, he cautioned on infrastructure timelines.
We would like to do it in 6 months or a year, but let's be realistic. It takes time to build a house. It takes time to build public infrastructure. But we are pushing as fast and as efficiently as we can. So it takes time because when we drill the wells, of course, these wells are over 500 feet on average. The Keon well was 585 feet. And it does take time to drill a well and to install all the equipment that is necessary, along with the pipeline to connect that well to wherever the reservoir is, and hence to bring the water to your community.
When invited to update on the desalination plant's progress, Williams confirmed that the project, which commenced ground construction in December 2024 after contract signing in July, is about 75% complete.
It should be completed, substantially completed by next month, July, which means that we begin to we begin to test the water and so on into our system by as early as next month, barring any unforeseen circumstances.
He disclosed that the cost of the project is approximately $50 million, noting additional expenses, including pipeline installation connecting the plant to the reservoir. These installations are currently underway, conducted by the Water Services Department in-house team. Minister Maynard took the opportunity to discuss the energy implications, acknowledging the challenges inherent in desalination.
One of the challenges, of course, with desalination is it's energy intensive, and energy, of course, is costly. It's costly for us to produce here in St. Kitts and Nevis, depending on fossil fuels.
He explained that the plant includes backup, independent energy generation in case the local power company, Skelec, faces production shortfalls. The electrical demand for the plant is estimated to be between 1 and 2 megawatts, which constitutes nearly 10% of the country's total usual power usage, ranging from 25 to 28 megawatts. Minister Maynard also highlighted the ongoing upgrades at Skelec to support the additional load and efforts to incorporate renewable energy sources to reduce operational costs.
Skelec will also update you on the progress being made to attract renewable energy, which is much more cost effective. And that is also going to be critical to ensure that the cost to operate the desal plant is reduced when green energy is able to come onto the grid.
Regarding the focus on drilling well locations, Assistant Water Engineer Landrith Mikhail Isaac identified approximately 10 to 12 targeted areas, predominantly located just beyond Keon, extending counterclockwise towards challengers, including Sadler's, St. Paul's, and Newton Ground areas historically prone to water challenges. The immediate focus areas includes Bastia or St. Peter's, where short-term rectifications are underway.
We want to have a full scope and attack the whole island so everybody can return to 24-hour service.
Minister Maynard elaborated on the rationale for targeting the northwestern side of St. Kitts and Nevis, which receives most of the island's rainfall. Anticipating frequent questions from residents puzzled by daily rain yet limited water supply, he clarified,
Well, if it's raining every day, we hardly see any runoff going to the sea when it's regular rain. That water is going somewhere. It is being captured in a reservoir underneath our feet. And this is what this exercise is to do, to find where that water is being captured so that we can bring it to the surface.
The minister estimated that about 40% of the groundwater has been developed, with plans to explore the remaining 50 to 60% in due course. On water conservation, an essential pillar in water management, Williams was unequivocal.
Conservation is something that I have said recently. It is, when I address the GCIS forum here, it is not an option for us, meaning it's not optional, it is mandatory.
He emphasized the limited impact of rainwater on a small island and explained how most rainfall is absorbed into the ground, thereby replenishing groundwater sources.
When you go around St. Kitts, you don't see rivers flowing continuously to the sea. Yes, when it rains really heavy in a short time, of course, the ground is not able to absorb all of that water in that short period, so some will flow off to the sea. But that is intermittent. That happens a few times per year. But for the 90% of the time, when the rain falls, it soaks into the ground and it becomes groundwater which we can exploit. So conservation is important. We have limited water on a small island. We have to use it wisely.
Williams recognized cultural challenges as a significant barrier to embracing water conservation, noting widespread resistance to acknowledging the country's national status as a water-scarce nation.
We have to begin in our minds saying, kids, we do not have a lot of water, and that will then transcend into how we use it.
Minister Maynard added a pragmatic perspective, pointing out that some governments in the Caribbean have resorted to mandates to protect limited water resources.
You cannot wash your vehicle with a runny nose. You cannot do a whole number of things in order to preserve the water resource that they have.
St. Kitts and Nevis has not yet implemented such mandates, and the minister urged citizens to form a partnership.
I am asking for us to have a partnership in this. I'm asking those who are listening, all of us who use water, let's partner on this. Don't force us, the government, to have to mandate behavior. Don't make us have to, and our laws allow for that. The Water Services Board, the Water Board, etc., has the mandate to advise the government to take decisive action to restrict the use of water. Please don't allow us to have to do that. I'm asking you to partner with us. The government is doing its role. We have spent the most money ever in the history in a short period of time on water development. Don't force us to have to make those decisions.
He commended recent water conservation campaigns, including dramatizations about water wastage, hoping to inspire behavioral change before legislation becomes necessary. Addressing concerns about water turbidity, particularly after Tropical Storm Ernesto, caused interruptions due to sedimentation. Assistant Water Engineer Isaac explained the ongoing mitigation efforts.
Every time there's some form of rainfall, it could be small or heavy, there's the siltation into the intake. And so every time that happens, we have to flush the line, which means the water interruption during that line.
He described a two-pronged approach, supplementing affected areas with water from alternative sources and installing a filtration system to reduce silt intrusion. Minister Maynard highlighted the direct link between climate change and these challenges, recalling visits to landslide sites caused by intense rain events stemming from climate variability.
That is a direct result of climate change, and we cannot understate its impact and how it is forcing us to have to now adapt in the face of these challenges.
Lastly, on the modernization of water system management, Isaac explained the pilot implementation of the Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition SCADA system.
So SCADA, SCADA, which is short for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. So this will help us to have real-time monitoring of the system. Right now, we're just very manual and physical, and everything is left up to guesswork. And so with the system now, we could have more data-driven decisions with regards to monitoring and maintaining the system.
The department is in the tender evaluation stage, poised to modernize water management and increase operational efficiency. The comprehensive update provided by the ministry reaffirms a committed and multifaceted approach to addressing the water challenges facing St. Kitts and Nevis, blending infrastructure development, scientific innovation, conservation education, and climate adaptation to secure a sustainable water future for the Federation. In regional news, Barbados Minister of Energy and Business calls for region to double intra-regional trade. Grenada Broadcasting Network reports.
The minister said life in the Caribbean has been shaped by shipping lanes and sea currents that have also conditioned our destiny, and the time has come for us to change all that.
Let us commit to a couple of things in this room. First, and I see that the CPSO is on the agenda to speak a little later, let us commit to doubling intra-regional trade by 2035. And why am I choosing 2035? We have a regional energy target, certainly a national energy target for 2035. Let us match that energy target, deriving 100% of our energy from renewables, the sun, the waves, the wind, including hydrogen, looking at where we can have intra-regional exchanges of energy. Let us do the same thing for our productive sectors. Let us double intra-regional trade by 2035.
The minister called for a reduction on the average shipping times and to make sure no Caribbean country spends more than 3 days without essential food supplies.
The Caribbean is in a logistics trap. It is for that reason that you have heard Prime Minister Motley and other ministers in this government, including myself, speaking about the importance of Barbados becoming a logistics hub. It is for that reason that you've heard us speaking about the importance of turning a historical geographical issue where we were the hub for the transatlantic slave trade to become the hub now for logistics into the Caribbean and into the Americas. It is that moment in time where we have to actually stop talking about it and just do it. It is in action, as I've said, that is our enemy.
Senator Cummins told the audience, made up of government officials and business leaders, now is the time to remove our dependence on transshipment hubs.
We are over-dependent on pre-existing, long-determined shipping routes. We are over-dependent on long-established transshipment hubs. We import 80% of our food. Our regional trade barely accounts for 15% of total exports. And in many cases, it costs more to ship a container from Barbados to Trinidad than it does from Barbados to the United Kingdom. How is that possible? We have to reshape this narrative. It is not sustainable. It is not economical. It is not environmental, and most certainly, it is not sustainable geopolitically.
The BMA is preparing to host its annual trade exposition, formerly BMEX, at the Garfield Sobers Gymnasium this weekend. Trevor Thorpe for the Business Report.
OECS educators gather in St. Lucia to revamp primary education. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
The OECS Pearl Principals Conference brought together key education stakeholders to discuss one of the most ambitious regional shifts in education, the rollout of the OECS harmonized digital primary curriculum. Although not all schools are involved in the pilot phase, the Ministry of Education emphasized the vital role of principals as change agents and strategic leaders in this major transition.
Your role in the broader education or in the broader educational ecosystem remains critical. The insights, leadership, and experiences you bring from your schools will be invaluable as we move towards eventual full implementation across the country and the OECS region.
The revised curriculum, decades overdue, marks a significant leap from outdated syllabi dating as far back as 2005. It aims to modernize how children learn, promoting critical thinking, creativity, and digital literacy aligned with the 21st century needs.
During that project, we looked at developing standards for education within the OECS region. You may remember we had a team of curriculum officers, including Ms. George at the time, Ms. Giffard, Ms. Bissett, where we came to you and we were teaching you about looking at the standards to enhance your curriculum. We had a number of workshops, and then we were saying to you, use these standards to kind of adjust what you do in the classroom.
The initiative, supported by a $10 million grant from the Global Partnership for Education, benefits OECS territories including St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. However, all member states are expected to reap the rewards of the shared regional effort.
This curriculum is not just digital in format, it is digitally inspired in function. It empowers learners to explore content in dynamic and interactive ways, think critically and creatively, engage with multimedia and inquiry-based activities, and build competencies aligned with both global trends and our regional realities.
Leaders were urged to embrace the challenge, model adaptability, and guide their teachers and communities through the coming changes with full implementation expected by 2026. With educators and leaders unified in purpose, the OECS is aiming not just to change how students are taught, but to redefine what it means to teach in the Caribbean. For the DBS News World, Manasseh Stanislas reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
Riot police faced off against anti-ICE protesters in downtown Los Angeles on Friday evening. The tense confrontation came after a day of federal immigration raids across the city. Dozens of people were reportedly taken into custody. Eyewitness footage appears to show one such raid, in which caravans of unmarked military-style vehicles and vans loaded with uniformed federal agents streamed through LA. ICE agents targeted several locations, according to the Los Angeles City News Service, as part of President Donald Trump's extensive crackdown on illegal immigration. Trump has vowed to arrest and deport undocumented migrants in record numbers. Live video of the subsequent protest showed LAPD officers lined up on a downtown street, wielding batons and what appeared to be tear gas rifles. Angelica Salas is the executive director of the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights.
Our community is under attack and is being terrorized. These are workers. These are fathers. These are mothers. And this has to stop.
Authorities had ordered demonstrators to disperse around nightfall. Early in the standoff, some protesters hurled chunks of broken concrete towards officers. Police responded with tear gas and pepper spray and also fired flashbang concussion rounds. An LAPD spokesperson said police on the scene had declared an unlawful assembly, meaning that those who failed to leave were subject to arrest. It was not clear whether there were any immediate arrests. Impromptu demonstrations had also erupted at some of the raid locations earlier in the day. ICE did not immediately respond to a request for information about its enforcement actions. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass issued a statement condemning the immigration raids, saying these tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city.
Congressional Republicans on Thursday and Friday were pretty much trying to avoid the Trump-Musk spat. You have the world's most powerful Republican, the world's wealthiest man, and basically members of Congress, don't see a lot of upside and they do see a lot of downside to getting between the two of them. The main concern really for the party is the 2026 elections, when control of both chambers of Congress will be up for grabs. Musk was a major political donor in 2024. The about 90% of the $300 million that he spent on the election really went to the White House race.
It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing.
It's important to note that Musk has waded into a fight that exists within the Republican Party. There are a handful of deficit hawks who say that this bill is going to add a lot of money, $2.4 trillion or more, based on nonpartisan analysts, to the federal debt, which is already $36.2 trillion. So that's a lot of dough. And you have had hardliners in the party saying, "Hey, wait a minute! We need more spending cuts if we're going to vote for this." And that's part of the reason this has become so sensitive to Trump.
U.S. stocks closed higher on Friday, with the Dow and S&P 500 gaining 1% and the Nasdaq climbing 1.2%. The S&P 500 closed above 6,000 for the first time since February 21st. A better-than-expected jobs report calmed worries about the economy, with non-farm payrolls increasing by 139,000 jobs in May. The unemployment rate stood at 4.2%, in line with expectations. Alexander Morris is CEO of FM Investments.
I think anyone in the stock markets today is enjoying what was a pretty solid jobs number, particularly on the back of a weak ADP job print, and then some reasonable but not out-of-line revisions, followed by some aspirations that, although the Federal Reserve clearly isn't coming to the rescue tomorrow, it does look like we're on target for some rate cuts in 2025.
Following the report, traders maintained their view that the first Fed rate cut would likely come in September, with one more cut in view by December. Stocks on the move Friday included Tesla, which rose nearly 4% after plunging about 15% on Thursday during CEO Elon Musk's public feud with President Trump over the tax cut and spending bill. Other megacaps also advanced, including Amazon and Alphabet, which gained about 3% each. Broadcom shares fell 5% after the networking and custom AI chip maker's quarterly revenue forecast failed to impress investors. And shares of Lululemon slumped almost 20% as the sportswear maker cut its annual profit target, citing higher costs from Trump's tariffs.
Ukraine called it Operation Spiderweb. It claimed over 100 drone attacks on military targets across Russia. The media called it audacious. And this was an extraordinary, unprecedented attack on Russia. Let's look at what Ukraine did on June the 1st and how it was done. Russia says air bases in 5 regions were targeted, but the planes were only damaged in 2. Ukraine says 4 bases and 41 military aircraft were hit, and BBC Verify has found evidence of attacks at these 4 bases, one of them thousands of kilometers from Ukraine. As for what precisely was targeted, President Zelensky says the drones were aimed exclusively at military targets, specifically the equipment used in strikes against Ukraine. To build a picture of what happened, BBC Verify has been analysing drone footage, other videos and satellite imagery. Let's start with Belaya Air Base in the east of Russia. This footage is from a Ukrainian drone used in the operation. It shows a Tu-95 long-range bomber. It can launch cruise missiles and has been used by Russia to attack Ukraine. Next, this is a satellite image of the same base from May. It shows several of this type of plane. Compare that with this satellite image of the same base after the attack. 3 of the planes we can see are badly damaged, possibly destroyed, and a wider view of the satellite image shows other planes were damaged too. There's also this video, taken near the base, that clearly shows smoke from the attack. And if that's Belaya Air Base, we also have video from Ivanova Air Base, which is northeast of Moscow. Drone footage was released by Ukraine on Wednesday. In it, we see 2 Russian aircraft being approached. These are Beriev A-50s. They're early warning aircraft and can see threats hundreds of kilometers away. They've been used in the war too. As the drone seems to make contact with the aircraft, the footage cuts out. It's very likely the planes were hit, though satellite analysis is inconclusive. And as we've learned more about Operation Spiderweb, one question keeps being asked. How did Ukraine do this? It says the operation was directed by the chief of Ukraine's security service and took 18 months to plan. And while using drones in war isn't new, what Ukraine had planned certainly was. Ukraine says first the drones were smuggled into Russia. Then wooden cabins were also transported into Russia. The image released by Ukraine shows how the drones were then hidden under the roofs of the cabins. We don't know when this was done. The cabins were then placed onto trucks and were transported to locations near the targets, reportedly without the drivers knowing what was in their cargo. Then, when the time came, the roofs of the cabins were opened remotely and the drones were able to fly out. Video taken close to Belaya Air Base shows this happening. As the drone emerges, in the distance, there's already smoke rising from the airbase. The drones that were used are known as quadcopters. They have 4 propellers, they can carry explosives, and they also have cameras. This allows the pilot to operate the drone remotely with the help of a video feed. And Ukraine gave us more detail on this in a post. It says the drones were sometimes flown by pilots, but sometimes when the signal was lost, they were flown by AI along pre-planned routes. Then, when contact was made with the target, explosives were automatically triggered. For its part, Russia says not all of these attacks were successful. It claims at military airfields in Ivanova, Ryazan and Amur regions, all terrorist attacks were repelled. We can't confirm this. What's not disputed is that these attacks happened and that some damage was done. So what impact will the operation have on the war? First, the attacks have hurt Russia's military capability.
This is undoubtedly an operation that will go down in military history. And when one puts that in context, the losses in context to Russia's overall capability, that's a significant chunk of Russia's strategic bombing force.
This was an attack on Russia's military capacity and also on its security.
These are embarrassing attacks because these air bases in Russia really should have been secured better. This is a country that is at war. This is a country with nuclear bombers. This is a country that should be expecting attacks even inside the territory.
But Russia appears to have not seen this coming. And as the war continues in Ukraine, most experts agree these attacks won't fundamentally change the conflict. But they have exposed Russian vulnerabilities and have shown a new type of attack. President Zelensky said this operation was designed to tell Russia it is not safe. By that measure, it succeeded.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were biodegradable fish pot panels marking milestone as Coast Fish project concludes in St. Kitts and Nevis. Robbery reported in Buckley's housing development. Progress update on investments and innovations in St. Kitts Water Services. Barbados Minister of Energy and Business calls for region to double intra-regional trade. OECS educators gather in St. Lucia to revamp primary education. Internationally, riot police and anti-ICE protesters square off in Los Angeles. Thank you for listening.